Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Dylan rushed through the busy design floor of the expansive Forrester Creations building as the sun hung low over Los Angeles, creating a golden haze. Her mind was racing with the newest deadline for the upcoming collection as she held a stack of fabric swatches to her chest. Dylan had established a precarious position for herself in this glitzy, competitive world of fashion at the age of 24. Months prior, she had come to town with little more than a dilapidated automobile and a desire, and she managed to secure a poor assistant job that kept her afloat. Will Spencer, who had granted her a temporary roof at his beach house after learning of her secret, was the only person who truly understood how close she had been to living on the streets. She had pleaded with him to keep it a secret, especially from her mother back home. Dylan disregarded the buzzing sound of her phone in her pocket in favor of concentrating on the contentious conversation between RJ and Ivy Forrester in the corner office. Something about budget cuts and dubious hiring could be heard in their voices through the glass walls. Dylan did not raise her head. She couldn't afford to be noticed. Not right now. She lived in Los Angeles. Was a skillfully crafted delusion in which she claimed that the California ideal her mother had always advocated for was at last materializing. A sleek black town sedan drew up to the curb that night as Dylan emerged from the building into the chilly air. She hesitated, thinking it was for one of the executives. However, the back door opened and a woman in her late 50s emerged, perfectly attired in a cut cream pantsuit that exuded both quiet desperation and old money. Her silver-streaked hair was styled into a sophisticated chignon, and her piercing green eyes looked about with a steel and nostalgia combination. Dylan, the woman called, her voice resonating like a forgotten tune on the walkway. Dylan froze. The swatches fell out of her hands and scattered like leaves. "Mom? Why are you in this place?" Diane Carter grinned, but it didn't reach her eyes, even though she hadn't used that name in public for years. In 3 assured steps, she covered the distance and embraced her daughter tightly. Dylan stiffened at first, then sank into it, breathing in the familiar jasmine perfume aroma that brought back memories of whispered bedtime stories and childhood kitchens. Diane pulled back to cup Dylan's cheek and murmured, "I couldn't wait any longer, sweetheart. You stopped adequately returning my calls. I had to see for myself those ambiguous words about living the dream." Dylan's heart raced. Los Angeles. It's been too long since I set foot here. She had purposefully avoided her mother. She created a picture of success in their weekly calls, but the homelessness, the near misses with eviction, and the way she had avoided danger on cloudy nights didn't match. "You ought to have informed me of your arrival, Mom." Diane's diamond tennis bracelet caught the sun as she waved a dismissive hand, saying, "I could have prepared." "Bullshit. I wanted it to come as a surprise. Take me to your accommodations now." The Pacific Coast Highway wound like a ribbon beside the water as they headed toward the beach house in Diane's rental automobile. "I want the full tour of your new life." Excuses raced through Dylan's head. Fortunately, Will was out of town for a few days, so the home would appear tidy. However, Diane arched an eyebrow as they arrived at the contemporary glass and wood building with a view of the sea. She stepped inside and ran a hand along the smooth kitchen counter, saying, "This is impressive for an entry-level assistant." "Dylan, are you certain you're not holding out on me?" With a shaky giggle, Dylan turned on the lights. "It's the home of a friend." Momentary. While talking about the travel and the never-ending traffic, Diane unpacked a little suitcase in the guest room. "Things are tight, but I'm managing." Dylan couldn't quite identify the tightness in her tone, though. The conversation deepened over a straightforward Thai takeout dinner on the terrace. Diane sipped white wine and remarked, "You know, I always dreamed of you out here, leaving the small town where we were raised." Dylan jabbed at her notebook, saying, "Making something of yourself away from the complications." "Difficulties? You always gave the impression that our life at home was ideal, Mom." With a gentle clink, Diane put down her glass. Calm, steady. The air between them thickened, but the surf waves offered a rhythmic soundtrack. "Baby, it wasn't always quiet. I didn't tell you some stuff." Dylan's fork stopped in midair. Things about your past that I thought I could bury forever by moving us away and starting fresh. Even though the evening breeze was warm, a shiver went down her spine. What are you saying? My history? When we departed, I was a child. What might there be? Diane leaned forward and met Dylan's gaze with such intensity that the younger woman shifted uneasily. To begin with, your father. He wasn't the man I made him out to be, so I never gave him a name. There is also more. Much more. Dylan, the secrets are catching up, which is why I came here. They always do in this town. Diane insisted on going to Forrester Creations with Dylan the following morning. Despite her white-knuckled grasp on her purse, she remarked cheerfully, I want to see where my girl works. Despite Dylan's objections, her mother persisted. People turned as they walked into the lobby. Even though Diane's eyes darted around as if anticipating ghosts, she held herself with the grace of someone who belonged in these marble halls. RJ was the first to see them at the design studio. Who's this, Dylan? He inquired, displaying his effortless charm as a Forrester. Dylan forced a smile and said, My mother, Diane. RJ held out a hand and said, She's visiting from out of state. It's a pleasure. Does it have anything to do with the fashion industry? Diane chuckled courteously, but her eyes lingered on the Forrester emblem carved into the wall. You look like you could have walked a runway back in the day. Not precisely. Ivy Forrester slid over next, her British accent sharp as she evaluated the newcomer, but Los Angeles has a way of drawing individuals back into old circles. Dylan has been a great addition to this place. Quiet and effective. We were unaware that family was involved. Diane spent the day observing Dylan's activities, such as getting coffee, setting up mood boards, and listening in on a quick meeting. However, the undercurrents were apparent during lunch in the commissary. Ever the intimidating figure, Bill Spencer walked by and stopped at their table. He squinted at Diane. Am I familiar with you? His voice was low and inquisitive as he asked. Diane did not flinch when she met his gaze. Maybe in passing. Mr. Spencer, it's been years. Bill's jaw clenched. Dylan was uncomfortable with the encounter, but he excused himself. Diane eventually opened the door to the truth later in a quiet spot. As they sat on a bench with a view of the city from the Forrester rooftop garden, she said, scarcely raising her voice above a whisper, It started before you were born. I was ambitious, young, and engrossed in the wrong kind of excitement. Back then, Los Angeles was a crazy place full of deals, parties, and risky attractions. I got to know a dude. Charismatic and strong. He promised the world and swept me off my feet. Dylan listened, her hands clenched in her lap, but he had secrets of his own, ties to families that thrived on drama and betrayal. Dad, Diane gave a slow nod. Not the straightforward salesman I described to you. Here, his name was associated with legacy. Marone Massimo. He was enormous, involved in fashion undercurrents, shipping empires, and every aspect of this city's life. We had a quick yet intense sexual encounter. I became pregnant. But I was aware of the dangers by then. There were adversaries for the Marone family. Strong ones. Additionally, he had another woman in his life who was erratic and temperamental. Dylan gasped, Sheila Carter. She had heard tabloid murmurs at the office, and the name sounded familiar. The infamous Sheila Carter, whose name made the Spencers and Forresters tremble. Sheila? As in the Sheila who? Yes, Diane said, her eyes sparkling. The one with the notorious past. Plans, obsessions, and comebacks from the edge. I recognized the danger, even though I was unaware of its full scope at the time. I made a decision when you were born. I grabbed you and fled. We moved to a peaceful Midwest town and somewhat changed our names. I told you falsehoods about a typical father who died at a young age. Dylan suddenly got up and paced the garden path. I thought distance would protect us. Around them, flowers grew in vivid defiance, but her world seemed to be tilting. So Massimo Marone is actually my father? And you're asking what? That all of this is related to me? The rivalry between the Carters, Spencers, and Forresters. Diane stood up as well, taking her daughter's arm tenderly. Dylan, there's more. There is more to the mystery than just ancestry. Something occurred to you when you were a toddler. Something happened. Somehow, Sheila learned about you. A confrontation took place. I kept you safe, but records were tampered with in the confusion. Hospital records and your birth certificate were falsified to conceal the truth. I believed it to be buried. But now that you're in Los Angeles, rumors have begun. Someone is aware. Or suspicions. I came for that reason. To caution you. It was a sobering realization. And to face it together before it explodes. Dylan's thoughts drifted back to her own hazy recollections, including nightmares in which a woman with wild eyes appeared in doorways and shadowy people. Had they actually existed? She recalled the rainy night vehicle accident that had occurred weeks prior, involving Will and an unidentified pedestrian. She had evaded queries from the cops. Is it possible for it to tie back? Tensions at Forrester increased that afternoon. Word soon got out about the sophisticated guest. Dylan was pulled aside in the hallway by Carter Walton. Your mother seems familiar. Is there a possibility that she has ties to previous Marone transactions? Dylan sidestepped, but she was reeling inside. We have archives here that might jog memories. Sensing anything was wrong, Will called when he got back from his trip early. Are you alright, Dylan? Worse, she said over the phone. You sound like you've seen a ghost. My mother is present. They meet at the beach home that night, and she's dropping bombshells. Diane recounted the tale, adding nuance, and Will, ever the devoted buddy with his own complex Spencer ancestry, listened. Massimo wasn't your typical dude. He had offspring from both legitimate and non-legitimate families. One of the secret ones could be you, Dylan. And Sheila might view you as a threat if she is still active or if her influence persists. Will's eyes grew wide. Or worse, as family. Carter? Sheila? That's Sheila? This explains why you're surrounded. D by strange vibes, Dylan. Diane nodded solemnly. The way some people watch you in the office. To restore your normalcy, I kept you out of this world. However, this is an illusion of normalcy. Sheila attempted to claim you during that encounter years ago, which is the startling part I've been afraid to tell you. Said that you were somehow a part of her bloodline. A struggle took place. I eventually struck a compromise, silence for safety, after fighting back. However, agreements with the devil are short-lived. The past is coming back to haunt you now that you work at Forrester and are involved with Spencers and Forresters. Before I departed, I discovered old letters in storage. Evidence of paternity. Dylan collapsed onto the couch as the view of the water became blurry due to unshed tears. DNA that could upend everything. I'm not who I believe myself to be. Not just a girl pursuing her dreams. I am a Carter, an heir to Marone, having a mother who protected me from a psychopath. Diane knelt next to her. Above all, you are my daughter. Robust and resilient. Indeed, the blood runs deep. The truth about your past is that it was never typical. Your legacy has the capacity to either empower or undermine you. I traveled to the city to make it public before anyone else. Before Sheila or her remnants turn it into something unpleasant. The days that followed were a swirl of silent revelations and confrontations. Ivy cornered Dylan in the sample room at Forrester, her look a mixture of skepticism and interest. People are talking about your mother's visit. A Diane from the Marone era is remembered by the elderly. Would you mind sharing? Dylan refused to back down. Family enterprise. Nothing that has an impact on my work, but it did. She was called to Spencer Publications by Bill Spencer, whose throne-like office overlooked the city. I once ran across your mother. A long time ago. Alliances are altered if you have Marone ancestry. Here, fashion is more than simply trends and hemlines, it's a war. Carefully consider your perspective. Diane visited with former acquaintances in secret cafes, trying to piece things together. One night on the beach under the stars, she told Dylan, I wasn't just running from Massimo. I was fleeing from my own errors. For a short while, I was connected to Sheila's circle because I was desperate to survive. She found out about the pregnancy in this way. I've been hiding the possibility that you are not only Massimo's daughter, but also more deeply linked in Sheila's web than I previously acknowledged. Dylan, there was a transition. Medical records. I permitted a fake entry in order to shield you from her preoccupation during the pandemonium following your birth. At first, You were listed under a different name. Diana. Dylan gasped. Diana Carter. Diana? Yes. I changed the name I gave you when you were born. Seeing reflections of her own disorder, Sheila became obsessed with it. They could use this to claim you if she ever comes back, or if her daughter or allies show up, or cut off the loose end. Will supported Dylan during the entire ordeal, their friendship growing stronger in the midst of the chaos. He looked through old newspaper clippings and found faded pieces regarding Sheila's infamous antics and the Marone scandals. Dylan, this is really important. Parts of Legacies may be yours. But more significantly, you're no longer alone. At a Forrester Gala, tensions reached a breaking point. As Dylan's +1, Diane showed up wearing an eye-catching emerald gown. They were followed by whispers. Dylan was drawn aside by RJ close to the champagne fountain. Your mom's moving recollections. A woman named Diane was referenced by my grandfather Eric in relation to past disputes. Is it true? Before Dylan could respond, there was a commotion among the throng. Rumored to have ties to the Carter clan, a woman with remarkable features and a knowing smile walked up. She met Diane's gaze.
It's been a while, Diane.